part of what we saw was a group of people trying to take away voting, trying to make voting harder. And a whole bunch of young folks, people of color, unmarried women, and others showed up and said, we want our voices heard. We are thrilled to be voting in this off-year election, and watch us vote.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today, while Hegseth tries to shift blame on heinous war crimes and Trump sleeps through cabinet meetings, we're going over the results of yet another huge Democratic overperformance, this time in Ruby Red, Tennessee.
Then we hear about the national effort to register and turn out underrepresented voters from the executive director of the Voter Participation Center, Tom Lopach. I'm Jess Craven.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
Welcome back. Welcome back stateside, Jess. You know, from
Thanks.
Somewhat tumultuous. That's a word that I should never say on a podcast. Trip. It's the times we're living in too, but that one gets past me. Anyway, you had a tough trip, but I'm glad you're back. And for people who follow you and listen to your videos, you talked a bit about MJ getting sick on your trip to England. But I hope they are feeling better and that you're happy being stateside again.
Well, I am, because at least I'm not, in UK dealing with a medical crisis. But yeah, it's always, I like going overseas because you always get to check out people's healthcare systems. And I've gotten really nerdy this way. I like to grill people on all the stuff they get for free that we go into medical debt in order to get. And, like a lot of other countries, British people are like, you pay copay? What's a copay? Wait, you do paperwork when you go to the doctor? We don't have paperwork. It's like, you worry about what an ambulance will cost? Yeah, we don't have that. I mean, my host, and we won't go into this in great detail, but my host said, no, the NHS is great. We all love it. We're really grateful for it. But, emergency room waits they're getting bad. I mean, sometimes you wait 8 hours in the emergency room. I was like, oh, really? Yes, we also do that. And then we pay tens of thousands of dollars for, it's just funny. It's like even the worst parts of the NHS we have here, but we pay for it. So, yeah. Anyway, interesting to see.
It is interesting. Healthcare is fundamental. It is, as you know, and probably anyone who's listened to this show more than once or twice knows, I'm a proponent for a single payer system, for a Medicaid for all system, as are you. It's long overdue, and I actually have some hope that, because this regime is dismantling the ACA and not, the big bullshit bill is, and all the fights we had about subsidies and Medicaid and Medicare and the slashing, from those ashes, I think we might actually have some political will to get something that really serves everybody. And, this is going to be the defining issue of the midterms. Healthcare is an economic issue for so many families. It's not just about our health and health outcomes, although it's certainly that. But so many Americans are just one illness or injury away from complete financial ruin. And we can fix that. We shouldn't, in the, wealthiest nation in the world, we shouldn't have that. So, anyway, we digress. Didn't even have that on our opening. We weren't going to have it talk about healthcare, but there's other stuff to talk about. Like, first of all, we have to address these heinous war crimes that I'm grateful they're coming to head now, because there have been people screaming about these strikes on Venezuelan fishing boats with literally no evidence that there's actually drug traffickers on these boats, no due process. They are saying that we are in some kind of war footing with Venezuela, which we are not. Of course, all of the recent reporting around a second strike that hit two people who were, in the wreckage of the first strike. This is the very first boat strike that happened. At Pete Hegseth's direct orders to make sure that you kill everyone on those boats. That's been the reporting that's come to a head. But important to remember that the first strike was also illegal, and that all of these strikes, are just heinous war crimes and with no due process, no oversight. Now, I know you'll have a lot to say about this, but I'm just going to say I'm very encouraged in the wake of the MAGA kind of consortium being ripped apart by Epstein, the bad poll numbers for Trump, all the ways he's underwater. We're really seeing this be an issue where Republicans are coming to the table looking for oversight in the Senate especially, and are breaking with Trump, once again, as they should. I mean, it so clearly states in all of the rules of engagement and manuals that we have for our military that this is an illegal act. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, no, and the MAGA, I don't pretend to know much about the way MAGA people think, but what I do know is that they want no more foreign wars. Like, they want less foreign involvement, America first. So, yeah, it's like Trump is sort of going through and ticking off boxes of everything he can do to piss off the people who actually voted for him or hurt them or alienate them. He ran on opening up the Epstein files, so he colluded to try to block it. He ran on ending foreign wars, so he's starting a foreign war. He ran on lowering prices, so he's raising prices. Like, he seems to think he's politically invulnerable or impermeable to changes in public opinion, but meanwhile we're watching polls, plummet. And it may not, you can argue, oh, well, he doesn't care about polls. He cares deeply about polls, and Republican lawmakers care deeply about polls because they have to run for office again, even if he will not. And I don't want to hear about a third term. That guy sleeping through cabinet meetings is not running for office again. Sorry, he can barely survive the term he's in.
I was going to say, I'm not sure he's seeing the polls because, numbers and charts and graph and general talking or any kind of activities seems to just lull him into a stupor. So not sure he's able to absorb the information. But to your point, he really has been able to act with utter impunity. You remember his quote, I could shoot someone in the middle of Times Square and get away with it. That has been Teflon Don. He's been able to act with impunity. He's been able to be duplicitous and say he's going to do one thing and do something completely different and not be held account for it. But now we're seeing that finally happen. And
not completely, but enough. I mean, you see people like what's his name, Tim Dillon. He's a podcaster. Really, I don't like him at all. Unlikable, far-right podcaster. But man, I've just seen clips of him recently, and he's just like, he's done. Like, he's really done. And there's lots of them. Joe Rogan, I don't know if Joe Rogan is done, but he's, bordering on done. A lot of these guys. He's been pretty
full-throated, especially around the immigration stuff. He felt duped about that. A lot of people seeing their neighbors be, pulled off the street when they really thought that they were going to come after criminals, that was the task. That's what he said. And, these strikes against Venezuelan fishing boats, while also pardoning the former president of Honduras, who was convicted for drug trafficking, that's pretty damn hard to reconcile, even amongst the MAGA faithful. So Carolyn Levitt can say that he was set up. Like, she's a whole nother wormhole we don't need to go down right now. I have to say, there's part of me that feels like a little bit of sympathy for Trump's, press comms corps.
No, Steve. No sympathy. No, sorry. Talk about no quarter. That woman gets no quarter.
No, I know. No, of course she doesn't. No. Of course she doesn't. But I just think of all of these people over the history of his tenure that had to do somersaults and lie and just sell their soul for the sake of his narrative. And But yeah, no.
Carolyn Levitt,
quarter.
you know how I feel. Every time she tells a lie, that cross on her chest burns her skin a little bit more. She's got it, like she's going to have a big burn mark there by the end of her tenure. She is an embarrassment and a disgrace. Honestly, she really is. I cannot stand someone who wears their Christianity that sort of, as a central part of their being. Mike Johnson, the same. These people who pretend to be devout Christians and are just so immoral on every level. It's hard to take, man. Anyway.
Well,
but let's talk about something good like Tennessee.
Because we can segue. Yeah, we can segue from Mike Johnson because we won't have to be dealing with Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House for very much longer. I'm really feeling that the winds at our back. And, we are just pouring through the results of the Tennessee special election. Sadly, Afton Bain wasn't able to overcome the huge deficit that she needed to overcome. And it was a long shot for her to win that race. But she did overperform Kamala Harris by about 13 points. And, Republicans are freaking out. They are running around in the streets, pulling their hair out, trying to figure out how they recalculate. This is going to, make them think long and hard about capitulating to Trump at every turn, too, because the clear repudiation of the Trump regime is out there, even in deep red districts like what we saw in Tennessee. And I just want to add that special elections so far this cycle, Democrats have run about 13 points ahead of Harris. And isolating the 4 U.S. House special elections, Democrats have overperformed by 18 points.
Yeah.
So, looking forward into the midterms, and this is also my reason for hope, so I'm jumping on that. But there are 28 House Republicans that hold seats that voted for Trump by 10 points or less in 2024. And right now we're in this redistricting battle and worried about Republicans being able to redistrict more than we can redistrict or whatever. Even in the worst case scenario, with Republicans redistricting, Democrats would only need to flip 8 to 10 seats to take back the House out of those 28. And we're overperforming by like 18 points. So, look, we got a year to go. There's a lot that can happen.
And we got
a
year to go. They can do a lot more damage in a year, though. Really.
That's true, too.
It's not like it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's not like ICE is going to get better. I mean, every day they're worse. So it doesn't appear that the trajectory is not moving towards, ICE is beginning to moderate. It's like, no, ICE is beginning to pepper spray people holding a cane, 2 inches from their face. A video I posted yesterday. Just, I'm a U.S. citizen. We don't care. I mean, they're fucking caricature monsters who are just going to keep acting with more and more impunity. And so, I'm telling you, Steve, I believe, and I have believed this literally the entire time, but I like seeing the empirical proof. We're going to flip the House. We're going to flip it by huge margins. We're going to flip seats that nobody thought was possible to flip, and we're going to flip the U.S. Senate, which at the beginning of Trump's term, people were like, oh, Democrats are in for a long slog because, they may be able to eke out flipping the House next, in 2026, but the U.S. Senate, probably not going to happen. No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm telling you now it's going to happen. We're going to work, you guys. This is not going to happen by magic. But we're going to flip the U.S. Senate. And as I just said in a video that I posted just before this recording, that effectively brings Trump's reign of terror to an end. Yes, he will still be there. Yes, he can still do bad things. Yes, we still have to contend with ICE. But oversight, subpoena power, no more judges being confirmed. There's so many things that will be monumentally changed by our flipping both chambers of Congress. And so take heart because, 16-point average is what we've been moving seats. And Afton was 13 points, but in the reddest district in Tennessee, which is one of the reddest states in the country. And I want to give a special shout out to her, man, because I love Afton. It's not just that she's a Chopwood Carry Water subscriber, which makes me very personally proud, but that was a hard race, man. You're running in a district where you've got virtually no shot. She was out there every day, knocking doors, talking to voters, on videos, telling people what was going on. She has been fighting as an activist for years to call out sexual assault, to get the grocery tax repealed, to, get children fed in the district. She's fighting for SNAP. She's fighting for Medicaid. Like, this woman is everything we want in a candidate. And she did it knowing she was likely going to lose. Talk about your fucking heroes. That is a hero. So hats off, and look at what she did. 13-point swing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So awesome. And we keep talking about how important it is to compete everywhere and to invest everywhere. And, you know, we build that scaffolding. And, you know, this isn't a loss when you overperform by 13 points. That's building that's building a foundation for a future win. And to your point, she did it as a proud progressive Democrat too, and wasn't trying to find a centrist lane that might appeal to more conservative voters. She went out there as herself and talked about, you know, the cost of living, you know, talked about kitchen table issues and real solutions for, you know, making people's lives better. And that's what people want to hear, you know, across the political spectrum. So I think candidates can all take lessons on how she ran that race. To your point about the Senate and the possibilities that we're going to see in the next year to take back both chambers, we need everyone to get excited and keep working, not to feel like, okay, we've got this. Like, this can happen. It is possible. But we all have to engage right now. And I know the holidays are coming up. So, I hope people get the opportunity to recharge over the holidays and then just fight for the soul of our country. And our country has been showing up and showing us who we are in all of these special elections.
Yeah, it's game on. And just remember that if every state shifts 8.6, just the 13.7 shift, if every state shifts that much next year, I want you in these states to particularly take note, because we're looking at flipping Maine Senate, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Alaska, Iowa, Texas. All of those states are in play for U.S. Senate next year. Forget about House, that as well. So if you particularly are in those states, I want you to eat a lot of food this holiday season, because next year you're going to be out knocking doors and working really hard to flip those U.S. Senate seats, because they can be flipped. And if they can, they must.
Texas is very interesting, because even if they're allowed to go forward with these terribly egregious gerrymandered congressional maps, I think there's going to be a big backlash to that and a lot of energy coming out of Texas. And I've been saying for a while, Texas is really a purple state. The Republicans have had a stranglehold on the legislature there and has done everything they can to disenfranchise voters and hold on to power. But all things being equal, Texas is purple, and a lot of the organizers there who have, like I said, been building that scaffolding are really effective and really dedicated. And, that's one to watch.
Yeah. These things, all right, this is the last thing I'm going to say. These things take time. There were people who were like, well, if we didn't win the Tennessee seat, fuck it, I don't care about a moral victory. These things take time. You think about Stacey Abrams, right, who started organizing back in Texas, God knows how long ago.
Georgia,
at this point,
you
20
mean,
years
but yeah.
ago. Georgia, yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. In Georgia, 20 years ago. And you look at how slowly we've been able to, we flipped U.S. Senate seats in Georgia, and now we're starting to see all of these flips in Georgia. We just flipped these two public utility commissions or public
Right.
service commissions.
Right.
We flipped seats in Georgia yesterday. We flipped a mayoral seat outside of Atlanta. All of this stuff that took decades to happen. Roswell, Georgia is where we flipped a mayoral seat. And so I really encourage everybody to look at this as, this is long-term work. It takes time. Tennessee's, that District 7 has been moving towards the left over the last 20 years, but it takes time. And so many of us who started organizing after Trump got elected the first time, the fruits of our labor are only just going to start paying off now and in the next 5 years. So Texas people have been working their asses off there, and we've had so many heartbreaks. My God, Beto, and, heartbreak after heartbreak. But at some point, that work is going to pay off. And if Ken Paxton runs, I think we're going to do well.
I think, and I'll say one more thing about it, but I'm going to just tease this into my reason for hope too, because I don't want to take up too much time. But you said something really important about how long it takes. And I talk about this with people getting involved all the time, because it's not like an instantly satisfying endeavor to do activism. In fact, it's very rarely that you get to do an action and then see the result of that action and then feel good about what you did. It's really like ripples on a pond. Like you do something and it gets pushed out there and you don't ever get to really see the direct impact of what you did. But I want people to know, to take in what you just said and know that when we collectively do this work and are consistent and do it with whatever bit of skills or time that we have, we do make an impact, and we make a huge impact when we do it together. But it's the long game for all of this. And, we can't get disheartened. That's the whole point of this show. We can't get disheartened with every win or loss, because we will certainly have more wins and we will certainly have more losses. But we just have to put one foot in front of the other and make this part of our life. And for me, that gives me a lot of satisfaction and makes my life richer, knowing that I'm part of building a better future that I may not see. I may not live to see the fruits of all of it, but my daughter certainly will.
I love that. It's beautiful. So that was your reason for hope. Am I right? Did we segue?
Yes, the
officially?
Overperforming was my reason for hope, to get to see that, consistently happen. 18 points in these House special elections. That bodes well for us. So, but we do want to do an action item for you all too, because the holidays aren't here yet. You don't get to rest yet. So you want to talk about the calls we need to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just really want to be calling about Pete Hegseth right now. What he's the head of the, he's the fish stinking from the head. He's the fish head, right? He's sort of trying to dodge responsibility or saying maybe, it wasn't me. He's trying to throw some other general under the bus. He's the one who said, kill them all. This caused them to do what's called a double tap, which is, they blew up the boat and then there's two survivors clinging to the wreckage. They blew them up. That you don't do that. Like, nobody supports that. Geneva Conventions, international law, the DOD's own manual, right? So he needs to step down. He needs to be gone. Unfortunately, we've got Hakeem Jeffries saying, oh, Democrats aren't going to pursue impeachment. Ugh. I'm not going to go into that because I promised I wouldn't, but I didn't promise I wouldn't, but I'm not going to. But the point is, we need to be calling our representatives, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whoever, and saying he cannot remain in his position. He cannot remain. Impeach him, persuade him to resign, get Trump to fire him. He's got to go, and keep saying it. Republicans they operate on this like, oh, it'll blow over. It'll blow over. And there's always another outrage, so it often does blow over. But Pete Hegseth is making us all deeply unsafe. He is a deeply unsafe individual who cannot remain in his position. He's a drunken Fox host frat boy who really is putting the U.S. in danger and committing war crimes. And or okay, we're not at war, then it's murder. Either way,
right.
He's got to go.
That's right.
So call, please call.
Yeah, please call. There is some reporting, not sure which source it is, but you mentioned that it's like rotting like a dead fish. Reporting that he actually smells like dead fish. Like
no.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You just made that up?
Maybe, but I'm reporting it here. I'm saying it here. I think Pete Hegseth smells like dead fish. All right.
Why not? Sure.
But, joking aside, like literally in the DOD manual for, why you are not allowed to follow illegal orders, it uses as an example of an obviously illegal order, firing on a shipwreck. On a wrecked boat where, people are clinging for survival. You're actually supposed to go rescue those people.
Help. Yeah.
Yes.
All of these people are supposed to be tried in a court of law. All of them. I mean, we have to remember that it's as George Conway said, it's not the first strike was illegal also. We cannot fire on people we don't know are drug dealers.
I mean, to be fair, I said that at the beginning of the show, but you can go ahead and say George Conway said it, but I said it too.
Okay, fine. You and George, but it's true. It is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, God, I hate to see our country falling this way, so that intelligence communities in other countries are not even sharing intelligence with us anymore because they don't want to be complicit in this. I mean, think about that. Other countries are just,
Again, just for another little quick reason for hope, I do think that there's going to be some bipartisan inquiries into this because, and that gives me a little hope. And there has to be, and there should have been from the get-go, but the double tap has really brought this to such an obvious head. And sadly, I mean, rightfully so, everyone involved should be prosecuted for, following this clearly illegal order. But it's going to affect a lot of people. Yeah. So anyway, that's another little reason for hope that we'll actually see some oversight, which we haven't seen so far this regime. What's your reason for hope this week?
Well, just real quick, I want to give a shout out to Sabrina Carpenter, pop star, I don't know what you would call her, star who spoke out against the White House using her song without her permission in a pro-ICE video. And she didn't just quietly sue them or send a cease and desist letter. She posted, "This video is evil and disgusting. Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." And that is a direct quote. Good for her. This is, every single person in this country is going to have a moment where they have got a little bit of leverage, or where they have got a platform or a place where they can speak out. Hers is big, and she used it. Good for her. Everybody must do the same. She's going to get shit for that. She'll get death threats probably from some people, but she did it because it's the right thing to do. So God bless Sabrina Carpenter, hero, shiro, whatever you want to call it. Every single one of us has to ask ourselves, when that moment comes, am I going to be as brave as she just was? Am I going to be as outspoken as she just was? Because every single one of us needs to be saying, this is evil and disgusting. Do not involve me to benefit your inhumane agenda. Because that's what it is. So she's my hero of the week. Her and Afton, of course.
Love that. Yeah. And I love seeing people use their platforms. And a reminder, we all have a platform. We all have a circle of influence, no matter how big or small. And, these fascism takes hold when people stay silent. So, seeing people with those kind of platforms, standing up, it's very encouraging and very hopeful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it from us for this week. Now I'm excited for everyone to hear about the really impactful work that is happening at the Voter Participation Center with the president and CEO, Tom Lopach. Tom Lopach is president and CEO of the nonprofit and nonpartisan Voter Participation Center and the Center for Voter Information, which uses data-driven methods of direct mail and digital engagement to register and turn out unrepresented voters with the goal of helping to ensure a representative electorate in U.S. elections. It's really important work. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Before we dig into it, I'm just curious. You've held a lot of positions in both state and federal government. You were previously chief of staff to Montana Governor Steve Bullock. You're executive director of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, DSCC, and chief of staff to U.S. Senator Tester, among many other jobs in your illustrious career. So what compelled you to take the lead at Voter Participation Project?
I came here in 2020 after Governor Bullock had stepped back from the presidential campaign, and it was time for me to figure out what I was going to do next. At the time, I thought I was coming to an important and interesting group that worked on voter registration and turnout for underrepresented populations. What I didn't realize in that moment was two things. One, there was a pandemic that would change the nature of our elections in 2020, and that we would need to go into high drive to make sure eligible Americans had vote-by-mail applications. We helped, my memory is north of 6.7 million people apply to vote by mail in 2020. We played a major role in helping eligible Americans in a pandemic vote in a way that felt safe to them. The second thing that became very clear to me starting in 2021 was that many people in elected office were going to use all of the tools available to them to try and make voting harder.
Mm-hmm.
And so our work of putting voter registration information, vote by mail application information, get out the vote information in people's hands, whether in their mailbox or in their smartphone, our work of creating a representative electorate would be harder than ever and more important than ever. And it's really, really good, data-driven, effective work. And it's work I'm thrilled to be a part of. That's how I ended up here, and it's a place I hope to stay.
Great. Well, by all measures, you're doing excellent work there. So I don't know why you would leave, but, you talk about vote by mail and the really important work you did over the pandemic to make that more accessible. And of course, the Trump White House has been questioning the validity of vote by mail for a long time right now, and has created an interesting demographic swap where vote by mail used to be predominantly Republican, and now it's the other way around. So I don't really have a question there. It's just your work and making sure that across partisan lines, vote by mail is accessible is more important than ever right now. And I want to also talk about, we had Ari Berman on our show a few episodes back talking about the Supreme Court case that is in process right now. The Supreme Court is considering a case that would further limit access to the ballot by gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. It looks as though, from initial arguments, that they're poised to do just that. So I'm curious what that will mean for your work in 2026, and how can we make sure that voters aren't disenfranchised by this ruling?
All of this, Steve, comes down to representation. It is either representation by who represents you in the House, in the Senate, in your legislature and governor's office, and who represents you at the voting booth. Many state legislatures, Congress, executive orders from the president right now are aimed at limiting representation, trying to figure out how can we change vote by mail? How can we change in-person early voting? How can we change voting and ID requirements? Getting rid of drop boxes. A lot of this is aimed at limiting the time period in which people can vote, limiting the methods in which people can vote, and limiting who gets to vote. Folks that are trying to reduce access to the ballot box know what they're doing. At the same time, Louisiana versus Calais is about reducing the number of people of color in Congress. Should the Supreme Court have its way, it is likely that 19 African American members of Congress and 4 to 5 Latino members of Congress will lose their seats. And we will end up with a Congress that is wider than the population, that is older than the population. And the people deciding policy for us are people that do not look like or understand the lives or the breadth and depth of all Americans.
Yeah. So how do you push back against that? Because that it looks like that's the way they're going to rule. And your mission, as stated with your org, is to increase civic participation among young people, people of color, and unmarried women. So how does that change your outreach, knowing that these members and this demographic will be disenfranchised?
The outreach that we do, and we've been doing it for 23 years, we've helped 6.8 million people register to vote in those 23 years. The outreach that we do is to literally send letters at a 4th to 8th grade reading level, or digital interactions, be it an advertisement, an audio ad on streaming radio. We provide that information to people of color, young people, and unmarried women, because we know these communities are deeply underrepresented in the electorate. And we share with them the information on how to register to vote, how to sign up to vote by mail, when to get out the vote. When I think about this, I carry with me an archetype in my head of a single mom, African American, in Atlanta. And she is thinking about, how do I feed my kids? How do I make sure rent is paid? What she's not thinking about is, am I registered to vote at this apartment we moved to 6 months ago? When is a primary election? When is a general election? In Georgia, what is a runoff election? And do I vote in that? What is voting by mail? I think about her, and how do we put the tools to register to vote and turn out to vote in her hands to make it as easy as possible for her to participate while she is worrying about food, clothing, and shelter for she and her kids. That's what we need to think about. Unfortunately, I think too many policymakers are thinking about the reverse. What can they do to make it harder to vote? We run programs that are effective, tested, and proven to meet people where they're at and help ensure that they can be part of our system, have their voices heard.
Despite those efforts by, as you said, a lot of the legislators who are in power right now to make it harder for people to vote, we just had an election on November 4th where turnout was huge, especially for a quote unquote off year election. Here in California where I am, I had guessed that turnout was going to be around 18 to 20% for a single ballot measure. But in fact, we had about a third of the electorate that showed up and, to vote for Prop 50. So you're a turnout expert. You've worn a lot of hats over your career. I'm curious what lessons you take from the turnout that we just saw on November 4th, and what do you expect to see turnout-wise in the midterms?
I'll tell you, we were thrilled to be able to run vote by mail sign up and or get out the vote programs in California, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Virginia, amongst other places for the November 4th elections. And we were thrilled to see high turnout. And as the numbers are coming in, it looks like there was very high turnout among the underrepresented populations we serve. Black folks, Latino, APIA, young people, and unmarried women. Now, what are the lessons? One of the great lessons coming in particular out of New York, New Jersey, and Virginia is that candidates were deeply focused on cost of living, affordability issues as it impacted voters. Many of us learned when we were young about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If people cannot take care of food, clothing, and shelter, they can't take care of anything else. And it feels like in 2025, candidates came to understand that in ways that perhaps they hadn't understood as deeply in recent years. By talking about affordability, food, clothing, and shelter, candidates heard voters, responded to voters, and in turn, voters turned out and had their voices heard.
Yeah. I think that we can definitely carry that. We talk about this a lot on our show, but it was a combination of that and, of course, a repudiation of this regime in many of these races. And when we combine those and really talk about kitchen table issues and affordability and healthcare, I think the midterms are going to be about both of those things. And the biggest comparison I find is obviously 2017, 2018, those midterm elections, and that's when Republicans were trying to take away the ACA, and healthcare was definitely on the ballot then, and it's going to be on the ballot now. So we combine both of those.
We are nonpartisan. So I hear you about the regime, but from our nonpartisan perspective, part of what we saw was a group of people trying to take away voting, trying to make voting harder. And a whole bunch of young folks, people of color, unmarried women, and others showed up and said, we want our voices heard. We are thrilled to be voting in this off-year election, and watch us vote. And we hope that continues.
Yeah. Well, it won't continue on its own. So how can our listeners help support your work?
I appreciate that, Steve. The best way to help, we are not a volunteer organization. We literally do direct mail and digital. It's a small team of very smart people doing the work, but funding helps us. If people can go to our website, voterparticipation.org, and support us financially, that means a lot. And I'll tell you, following the 2024 elections, a lot of financial supporters took a step back and are focused elsewhere. So low dollar donors helping us to do the work is meaningful. The second thing, volunteer locally with voter registration groups and watch your state legislatures. Legislatures have introduced over 2,100 bills since January 2021 to make voting harder. We need to make sure our citizens are watching their legislatures and calling them out when they try to make voting harder.
Great. And we'll have a link to your website on our show notes page so people can find it easily. The last question that we ask everyone on our show, what is bringing you hope right now?
What is bringing me hope? Two things. State and local elected officials and people in the states. It feels to me like governors all over the country are paying attention to their voters, understand their needs, and are responding to their needs. I often say that's because I think governors still buy their own groceries and they hear what people need. The second thing that gives me hope, I recently went to the No Kings rally in DC. My parents have gone to them in Montana. And I just watched the extent to which Americans all over the country are showing up and are speaking up and standing up to make sure their voices are heard and make sure that our country and our democracy is strong. That gives me incredible hope.
Me too. It gives me hope that such important organizations that are fundamental to our democracy, literally making sure that people have the access to the ballot, that's everything, gives me hope that they are being run by people like you. So thank you so much, Tom, for your work, and thanks for being on the Practivist Pod.
Thanks, Steve. We love this work.
Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget that all of the links for our actions are in the show notes, so don't just listen, click those links and take action. Please subscribe, rate, and review our show. It really helps on Apple or YouTube or wherever you're listening. And share our show with your friends and family members and make sure they are taking action to help us win. And if you're able to support our show on Substack, honestly, we would be so grateful for that, and you will get an ad-free feed of our show as well. We'll be back next week with more Practivist Pod, and until then, don't forget, hope is an action.
Stay strong.